In a city where the HOA banned front yard gardens, people were left hungry and powerless. But one man looked at the rooftops and saw hope. It started small, a few tomato plants in broken pots, hidden away on a forgotten rooftop. But that act of defiance would ignite something much bigger. Every night, he carried soil up the stairwell, one bucket at a time, as if he were smuggling life itself into the gray skyline. The neighbors noticed. At first, whispers. "He's crazy." But then, hunger gnawed at their homes too, and curiosity turned to admiration. The HOA sent warnings: remove all unauthorized vegetation. But the rooftop was invisible from the street, his rebellion stayed hidden. One evening, a single mother knocked on his door. Her kids hadn't eaten fresh vegetables in weeks. He handed her a bag of greens, and her eyes filled with tears. Word spread. By dawn, more neighbors were climbing those narrow steps, carrying buckets of soil, trays of seedlings, even broken chairs to use as planters. The rooftop transformed. Where there was once gravel and tar, rows of green stretched under the rising sun. But rebellion never stays hidden for long. The HOA president spotted children carrying cucumbers in the courtyard, cucumbers that came from nowhere. A notice appeared: all residents are forbidden from accessing the roof. Violators will be fined. The community gathered. For the first time, they weren't whispering about rules, they were whispering about freedom. One old man stood up. He said, "When I was a boy, my father grew food during the war. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to. And now, we must too." The HOA sent an inspector. He climbed the stairs with a clipboard in hand, but what he found stopped him cold: children watering lettuce with tiny cups. He turned back, silent. No report was filed. Sometimes, dignity is louder than rules. But the HOA wasn't finished. The next day, they threatened to lock the rooftop gate for good. The rebellion was about to face its first true test. The lock was heavy, a symbol of control. But the people had already tasted freedom, and once you taste it, you can't go back. At midnight, someone cut the chain. The gate swung open, and the gardeners poured in like rebels storming their own castle. Under the moonlight, they planted beans, peppers, and squash, turning rebellion into ritual. Children painted signs: "Our food, our roof." The walls were no longer gray, they were alive with color and defiance. The HOA president arrived with security guards. But what he saw was not chaos. It was order, care, and a community standing tall. A guard hesitated, lowering his baton. He whispered, "My kids could use this too." In that moment, the rebellion gained an ally. The president shouted, "This is illegal." But his words sounded small against the laughter of children running through rows of sunflowers. A young woman stepped forward. She said, "Illegal is watching our children go hungry while we have empty rooftops." The guards withdrew, leaving the president red-faced and alone. Power was slipping from his grip like sand through fingers. That night, the rooftop garden became more than food. It became a symbol of dignity, a quiet revolution built on soil and sunlight. But symbols attract attention. By morning, city officials arrived. Clipboards. Cameras. Threats of fines. They promised to restore order. The community gathered in silence. Then an old woman placed a tomato in the inspector's hand. "Taste it," she said. He hesitated, then bit into it. The juice ran down his chin. He hadn't tasted something that fresh in years. And suddenly, his clipboard felt heavier than his conscience. He muttered, "I'll need time to file this report." And just like that, the rebellion won another small victory. But the fight was far from over. A storm was brewing, not in the sky, but in the city council chambers, where the fate of the rooftop garden would soon be decided. The city council chamber was cold, polished marble echoing with rules and regulations. But that night, it would echo with something far louder, voices of the people. The HOA president stood at the podium. His words were sharp: these rooftop gardens are unsafe, unsanitary, and unlawful. But then, a mother stepped forward, holding her daughter's hand. She said, "Unsafe is an empty plate. Unlawful is watching children starve while rooftops sit bare." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The chamber had heard complaints before, but never a plea so raw, so undeniable. The council leader shifted uncomfortably. He glanced at his notes, but the words suddenly felt like dust on paper. One by one, residents stood. A veteran who said the garden gave him purpose. A widow who said it gave her hope. A child who said it gave her dinner. The HOA president slammed his fist. "This is anarchy," he shouted. But the council saw something different. They saw unity. The debate dragged on for hours. Rules versus survival. Control versus compassion. A city balancing on the edge of change. At midnight, the council adjourned without a decision. The garden's fate hung in the air, as fragile as a seedling in the wind. The community returned home, weary but unbroken. They climbed the stairs, lanterns in hand, and watered their plants under the stars. They knew tomorrow would bring another battle. But tonight, they claimed a small victory: their garden still lived. The next morning, news cameras appeared. Journalists wanted interviews. Suddenly, the rebellion wasn't just a neighborhood secret, it was a citywide story. The HOA president panicked. He had wanted control, but now his crusade was turning him into a villain in front of the entire city. Neighbors who once stayed silent now spoke boldly. "We are not criminals. We are gardeners." Their voices spread like wildfire. And with every camera flash, every headline, the rooftop garden grew larger than itself. It was no longer just about food, it was about freedom. The council reconvened. This time, the chamber overflowed with people. Farmers, teachers, parents, children, all gathered for one cause: the rooftop garden. The HOA president arrived in a tailored suit, determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. He declared, "If we allow this garden, we open the door to chaos. Today it's vegetables. Tomorrow it's livestock. Where does it end?" But then, a boy no older than 10 raised his hand. He held up a single carrot and said, "It ends when no kid goes to bed hungry." The room fell silent. Even the council members leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the boy clutching his carrot like a torch in the dark. An elder councilwoman spoke at last: "Maybe the real question isn't where it ends, but where it begins. And maybe it begins here." The chamber erupted. Applause thundered off the walls. The president's face burned red as his grip on power slipped away completely. A vote was called. One by one, hands were raised. The council ruled in favor of the rooftop garden. The people cheered, their voices shaking the marble halls. For once, law and dignity stood on the same side. The HOA president stormed out, defeated, his echo swallowed by the sound of celebration. That night, the rooftop shone with lanterns, laughter, and the smell of fresh herbs carried on the breeze. Children chased each other between rows of tomatoes, and neighbors shared meals under the stars. The rebellion had become a feast. The man who had planted the first seed stood quietly at the edge, watching. He never wanted glory. He just wanted food for his people. A neighbor placed a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just feed us," she said. "You reminded us we still have power." And so, the rooftop garden lived on, not just as a patch of green above the city, but as proof that when people stand together, no lock, no law, no threat can starve their dignity.